This is the Weigh-In Podcast by Benoit Chestnut and normally Sebastian Romero, but we will return to our regularly scheduled program soon. So on this week's Weigh-In, we bring to you, as always, we're always bringing something to you, the fans. I mean, it, there's no way not to bring to you something. So I guess that's the biggest piece of the pie, what we bring to you this week. So, on bringing to you this week, it is fight week for Canelo and for King Rye. Ryan Garcia is going up against Rolly Romero, and I'm pretty sure, I think we've already broke this down, Devin Haney as well is on that card, so it is time. I think, the capital of everything, it's Ryan Garcia goes down May 2nd, so it's here already more than we thought it was going to be. So that's the great part. Ryan Garcia is going to go down May 2nd, and we talk about our boy Canelo goes down May 3rd. It is here already. It just, who would have ever thought before you know it, it is here. So, and that is going to be, it's going to be good in itself. So for you guys that bring to you that on this week, the Canelo and Ryan Garcia both fighting. Ryan Garcia May 2nd, Canelo May 3rd. But let's kick this off. We'll start off with Canelo. And I say that because it's gonna be a long Garcia. So when we talk about King Canelo here, as that's what they say, Canelo, Saul Canelo Alvarez. I think William Skull does not stand a chance. I think that this is going to be this is going to be the fight that is for Canelo. He wants that belt. He's going to be undisputed again. This is something that if you're William Skull, if there's a fight to bring it and try to win, it's this one here because now you're going to get the rest of those belts. This is an undisputed fight. So, winner's going to become that undisputed. You know what I mean? So, that's one of the great things to look at, that the winner will be undisputed. So it's going to get interesting. It's going to get interesting if you're Canelo. It's going to get interesting if you're William. And I think it's a Canelo victory. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's a Canelo victory, because you're coming into a Canelo that wants to have his belts back. That wants to have everything back that he has had for himself. He's had so much running for him, and he wants to have it back. And when you put all that together, that really tells the story that that most have even thought for. That story of very well is Canelo being undisputed again, and that's you got that last belt and you stand in the way. And I think that, and it comes in terms of that, I think Canelo knows what needs to be done, knows what needs to happen. That's the great part, and that's what I see. And also, just in general, it's a card where I feel like this is more for the main event. I don't, some cards you say, oh, it's going to be better, it's going to be this, but I don't think it's as big. And I say this for a multiple magnitude of reasons, that this fight for King Rye, this is the getting back to Devin Haney, because all intentions when both guys win here is Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia 2, or Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia rematch. So the intentions here, there's a bigger lineup that is being lined up here. And when you look at that, I just think that is, you look down the road for Canelo. Yes, you get this, all intentions, Terrence Crawford. Let's go that route. So with all intentions, Terrence Crawford, I think that's going to be really good, having that intentions towards Terrence Crawford, that's great. And after Terrence Crawford, if you win that, I say if because you never know how these fights are going to go. If you win that, if you win that, then give us David Benavidez. At nobody else, David Benavidez. And that's a good looking Canelo schedule that, as a fan, we can feel happy about. And that's why I think this Canelo is a good. It's potentially a good draw no matter how you look at it. And I think that's something that just deserves to be said. Canelo is trying to do what he's got to do, and that is become undisputed again. So, and I think that so. So now what we're finding out is this Crawford may not be scheduled anymore. So there you go again. There goes Canelo ducking and running again because now we don't even have this Crawford possibly. So that's interesting, but we may still get it. I think in terms we may still get Crawford Canelo. I think we may still get it. And I hope we do. That's one thing I hope we do. So, I really do hope we do get that. So we got a lot of good boxing going on, and this is real interesting. So as we break down this Canelo card, Canelo versus Skull card. So when we look at this Canelo card versus William Skull, let me see if I can find you. And then you have I know I didn't mention this really in the intro, but you have Fatima Lopez also fighting on that card in NYC. So for Ryan, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So you got Canelo, William Skull, you got Bruno Soares, Jaime Munguia. That's what I want to see. Jaime Munguia get back to being Jaime Munguia. You got Badu Jack, Ryan Belazic, Marco Verti, Miel Polina. Like, so we have a good. I'm not saying that Canelo's card isn't, but it's not to the magnitude of that NYC. So when you talk about Canelo, you know that it is a very strong card. When you look at that, you say, okay, it's good, but it's not going to be NYC good. Having boxing in Times Square, the magnitude that is going to bring to the sport of boxing, just in general, is going to open the door for what I keep talking about is that Ecuadorian boxing bout. We're opening the door for other boxing events. I know we've been having a lot with that Raya season, Saudi Arabia boxing that Canelo has been doing, and that we're having a lot going on over there. They're really doing it great. That's great. Now I want to see more involvement of other countries. Like let's get other events in other countries. I still say this in so many ways that is something that I would like to see. There should be so many events in just other countries because this is boxing. Pick your location, pick your duel anytime. As Jake Paul said, anytime, any place. Well, let's start getting that any place up. Let's start. Let's get one in Ecuador. Let's get one in Italy. I know I always talk about this, but we gotta. But if we get back to task at hand, this Canelo card. This is the way I see it. I know everybody's gonna want to know. I always get asked this. How do you see it? I see Canelo beat Skull. I don't think it happens in the first 5 rounds. I think it's going to be more of a later round. And I think, middle or late rounds for Canelo. And I see Jaime Munguia with getting a victory, but I don't see him early rounds either. I see that middle or late rounds. So, and I see that because I think these guys are going to want to put on a show before they knock him out. When we talk about the WBC cruiserweight title, Dabu, Jack, and Ryan, I don't really specifically have seen or know those two guys or have seen them fight. So I can't talk about that, that hand in hand frontwards. But I will say, Badu Jack is the champion there, and I kind of think if we're gonna go there, I think Jack should be able to retain his title. I can't give you what round or anything like that, because I don't watch Jack a lot. So what I can give you is I do believe Jack should retain his title. Should. I will always side with any champion, as long as they can do what they do, unless it's Canelo Benavidez or Canelo Crawford, because in that case, I'm with Crawford on that fight, and I'm with David Benavidez. But with with more going around with this this Canelo Williams Cole, you seeing Canelo double schedule. That's what I call it, the double schedule. I really thought that this was going to be amazing. That double schedule, we were going to feel great. It's seeming like Canelo is like, no, I'm not going to schedule this. I'm going to let this fight happen first. I don't see no other way with it, but you already acquired to set up Terrence Crawford. Why not? It's just, we're getting a lot of these matchups from Canelo that we want to see, and now we're not going to see, but definitely ready to see Canelo put on a show. I expect William Skull to be on the canvas. I like I said, I expect his skull to be on the canvas. I don't expect Canelo to go through this fight and go the distance, because if you keep going the distance, you're not showing us that you're prime Canelo anymore. You're showing us that you're kind of moving your way through these fights, and that's not what we want to see. We want to see that prime Canelo. I want guys on the canvas. I want guys quitting on the stool here. Then that doesn't say you can't still give us like a Billy Joe Saunders or a Caleb Plant, where it's a late round knockout where we still get a good fight out of it. And I really feel that that's something that should be on the mindset of Canelo. This guy has your belt. You want to prove why you didn't want to fight this guy before, and there's no other way than by knocking him out. Then you show everybody, commission, everybody, hey, you gave this guy my belt, and now I just made quick work of him. Understand that I am a high-level craftsman. I'm high level in boxing. You can't bring me somebody who's not on his level, then gets beat and says, well, this is the guy you were supposed to fight. Well, maybe let's not start doing things like that, and let's bring real matchups. Because if he goes through this Williams skull, easy, quick, why? Why would you snag up Canelo's belt just to create your own matchup? If you want to run a promotion, you want to be a promoter, go ahead, be a promoter. I understand that guy was the number one. Yeah, but we're talking about an undisputed king. Canelo has all the belts. You don't just jump a guy in the front of the line and say, well, yeah, he deserves a shot. Because when you do that, first of all, Canelo decides to vacate the title, which all intentions, great decision. If you're not going to take the fight, great decision. Great decision. All intentions, great decision. But if we really get down to the nit and gritty here, all you did was you put a target on William Skull's back for Canelo to get his belt back, and you created that fight that you wanted. That's great, but it, in all intentions here, you serve yourself nothing if you keep doing things like that. You know what I mean? Like, you serve yourself nothing if you keep doing it like that. I'm going to tell you why. You serve yourself nothing because, listen, if you're going to keep setting up matchups where guys are going to be quick work, quick work, quick work, quick work, that's not getting another guy to your belt. Canelo's trying to get back to possibly going up against Bevo. He wanted to get a rematch against Bevo. If you keep mandating him to fight these guys at his weight, when do you think that's ever going to happen? Then your belt is opened up. Then the guy you want to have it, you can have him fight for it when he gets that Bevo. Or when somebody like Crawford or somebody like David Benavidez finally humbles him and he gets beat, you know. And many could say, some boxers that are at top of the game are untouchable. They're unhumble, whatever. They're unable to be humbled. Now, if we saw it happen to Tank, we all know he didn't lose, but we saw it happen to Tank. Then it can happen to Canelo. It can happen to anybody, and I think that is very well the case here. When you talk about David Benavidez, when you talk about Terrence Crawford, you talk about two guys that are high level, definitely on the level of Canelo. I know Canelo likes to say a lot of times they're not on my level. This, that. I know he said that to Jake Paul, you're not on my level, but even that wasn't set up. So, it's just like, okay, what's going on? We get this Williams skull, but I understand he wanted to get his last belt. But if your next fight is not David Benavidez or Terrence Crawford, it's disappointment. It's disappointment. Don't say you're not running from the fight. You're running from the fight. Because if you're now not setting this up and you're going against somebody else again, no. What we want to see is that Terrence Crawford. What we want to see is that David Benavidez. That's what we want to see. That's what you want to see. Whatever happened to setting up the best matchups because it's what happens. Like Devin Haney set himself up Ryan Garcia. Whatever controversy that loomed around that event, it was still put up. Guys still went to scrap like Tank. Whatever, he match ended in a fight ended in a tie, but he still set it up. He still set it up. When Rolly Romero said he could get him, he still set it up. When King Rai said he could get him, he still set it up. He proved to everybody, listen, I still set it up, but you ain't going to beat me. When you look at Canelo and we start talking Canelo, Saul Canelo, he's not setting it up. Like, you're like getting there, it's like, oh, it failed. Failed, but that's one half of the epi. That's one half of this epi get going. So, if we get into that Times Square, that Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and Fatimo, excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, Fatimo Lopez card. Many may not agree when I say this, but that is 3 stars lined up on one card. Ryan Garcia, easy a star. Devin Haney, easy a star. Lopez, easy a star. 3 stars, one card. So when we break this, we're going to break this card down now. Because that's the one. That's the one for y'all. We're going to break it down. And we're going to break it down to the bottom barrel. Yeah, you feel me? The bottom barrel. Yeah. Yep. So let's get into that. So, and then, don't even get me wrong. Rolly Romero, I mean, I'm going to say a star, but maybe a mid-level star. Still a star. Like, look at these opponents. Like, you can't get a card better than that. And then have it in Times Square. So now you're going to open up a lot of boxing in Times Square. New York and boxing has some long roots. New York City and boxing. They got some long roots. And it's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. They got some long roots now. So let's get into this. Okay. Let's break it down for y'all. Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero. Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez. Fatima Lopez Jr. versus Arnold Busga Jr. That doesn't look good. So let's get this out of the way. Let's get this out of the way. No joke. I got Garcia, Haney, Lopez. No other way. I don't see Devin Haney losing legitimately. Um, I also don't see Ryan Garcia getting beat. Now I know Rolly Romero is, has been trying to be better in his career, but I think Ryan Garcia is trying to come back better than ever. But we don't know what kind of Garcia we're going to see here. And I say that because he's been away from boxing for 1 year, so we don't know if we're going to get a rejuvenated Ryan Garcia, if we're going to get an old Garcia, if we're going to get a the Devin Haney Garcia. And I say the Devin Haney Garcia where he's on top of his game and true craftsmanship. You know, the question we should be asking ourselves is how many times is Rolly Romero going to drop? And you know, if we're talking in terms of minimum, I think more than one, probably more than 2 times, because if the Ryan Garcia, you know, if the rejuvenated Ryan Garcia comes in and he comes back where he left off, let me tell you, Rolly's gonna drop. He's gonna drop. We all know Ryan's got that power with him. You know, it's it's really good. Ryan Garcia got it going, and that's why I'm saying, it depends on what kind of Garcia we're going to receive here, because we could get a really good Ryan Garcia here, and that's all going to be the difference here with that Ryan Garcia. When we talk about King Rai, when we talk about all this is a good event, and I think it also depends on what kind of Devin Haney shows up. You got beat, whether what your record says, what you were able to muscle up so that you can keep this undefeated record. Listen, and then you're going around wanting days in to take down videos left and whatnot. Um, I think the best thing I can say here is, you got to understand when you're humbled, but don't look to find answers in ways that keep you to look like you were not humbled. You know, don't sit here and say, okay, I wasn't humbled in that ring. Certain things were going on with Ryan. You know, you were humbled. You got to look at that and say, hey, something was wrong here, and it's not what this guy was doing with his lifestyle. You got to say it was something I was doing with mine. You know, walking around and thinking, and this is not the first time I felt he was humbled. This is not the first time I felt he was humbled. First time I felt he was humbled was during that Lomachenko. You know, but that wasn't the first time I thought, this definitely isn't the first time I thought that Haney was humbled. Definitely. I'm telling you, this isn't the first time I feel like Haney was humbled. I felt like he was humbled during Lomachenko. But, regardless of the outcome, I felt he was humbled. And you look at Devin Haney, who has consistently ran, like, I will say this time and time again. You're a superstar, but you're not a megastar. You know, you have to understand you're not, there is top of the game boxing right now. And when you say some of those names, you'd be very surprised who you feel is not on that list. You'd be very surprised, and that's why, I feel like Devin Haney, when we talk top of the game boxing, there are guys that are getting after it better. And I talk about that because when you look at that whole tank weight class, that's no matter how we talk about this all the time, no matter how you class that's top of the game. And when you look at Devin Haney, when you say, okay, I'm going to get back to Ryan Garcia, anything other than a knockout this weekend for Devin Haney, I consider it a fail. I consider it not ready for Ryan Garcia because what's going to be your excuse this time? Don't run and say, "Oh, he was on this, he was on that," and then admit whatever happened. That's not the topic in discussion here, but there is big topic in discussion, and I feel like Devin Haney can't run from this. When you get beat, you're humbled. Stay humbled. Learn from it. Don't look for excuses and say, "Whoa, well, this guy's thing turned up." If you knew, that XYZ had happened, I won't get into particulars, but XYZ happened. Were you not informed, and then you decide to go through something, and then you look for the bailout? You're like, "Oh, wait, I got beat." I'm not buying none of that, any of that. I'm not, that's not topic of discussion. But you know, there are moments when you can understand somebody will not act right about a decision. I won't use any other words. I will say not act right about a decision. You know, boxing is a game where if you don't always stay like you hungry, like you want to keep boxing, you want more and more and more, you get beat. You get beat. When you feel you're untouchable, you get beat. That's the same reason why, he didn't get beat, but that's the same thing when we talk about Tank. You got, and I'm sure it was a humblement for him. You know, a perfect record now no longer perfect. You know, and the significance of that is like, okay, in all intentions, when you look at that, how you treat your own self is how you take your humbleness. And I say that because if you treat yourself like, oh, oh no, I didn't lose this. No, 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 no. Close, but no, I fairly won this. If you sit yourself, if you think to yourself, this is what I got, I didn't do this, or I didn't take it serious, or I can't do stuff like that. Then now you're learning from it. You don't learn from it, it may happen again. You know, who knows? But when we talk about, the magnitude of what brings here this, I think you're gonna you're gonna bring the hype on that next fight for Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. And I'm gonna tell you why you're gonna bring that hype, because now you're gonna start rolling it up like do, almost like that the choo choo train, choo like the choo choo train. Why? Because now if Ryan Garcia gets a knockout, Devin Haney gets a knockout. Well, guess what? Now you're like, whoa, now they're gonna fight again. What's gonna be your excuse, Devin Haney, if you lose? Or what's gonna be King Rye's excuse if he was to lose? Now, if you ask me how I would see the rematch going, I see it Garcia. I would like Garcia to win that. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because the way Devin Haney was acting after his thing, saying, "Oh, this and that," saying, "I want Days In to get rid of the video of that last fight." I've never seen another boxer. I've never seen it. I've never seen somebody act in those ways that you're so, "Oh, get the video down." You got beat. You got beat. There's no rhyme or other way to see it. You got beat. Listen, you bailed out because this guy decided to, this guy or that guy decided to make a bad decision and, do some things that he shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it doesn't excuse the fact that you were humbled, and I'm going to say that, with light impression, it doesn't excuse the fact that you were humbled. And I say that because he was humble. You got to look at, and he was humble during Lomachenko, but you were able to escape that loss, and now you come around, you escaped another one. You're always coming up with, hey, I've escaped this, I've escaped that. When we talk about Devin Haney, you got to talk about somebody that's not just going to start acting in certain ways. So, the question is, are you going to start running from the matchups where you can be beat? Are you going to start running? Because and we're going to see if he sets up that King Ride too. If he sets it up, because he talked about he won. If he sets it up, okay, you know, we clean slate here. We're going to see how that play out, but don't start acting like some of the others in boxing, like Canelo. We've been waiting for him to do Benavidez, and we still haven't got it. We've been waiting. Now we wanted Crawford, and in all likelihood, it seems like that might be off. And now it's like, okay, what are we getting here? I think if we talk about Devin Haney, don't give us that, Devin, because if you give us that, we're going to sit you in the same boat as the rest of them and say, nah, you're not trying to bring us the best boxing we can bring. Now, he did with Ryan Garcia, don't get me wrong. You are bringing us a good Garcia matchup, but that's a good start. Because in all intentions, we need to see him against Lomachenko again. And he won't win that if he fights Lomachenko again. So, that's a good, coming on here with what's going on in the upcoming days, bringing you another epi. But with that being said, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share. I'm enjoying being able to do these episodes for you. This is just really a great thing, and just to be here to do this it's enjoyable getting up here doing all of this. So for you guys, like, comment, subscribe, share. I'm going to keep the content rolling for you. Don't worry. Streak is still going. For many who are joining late, the new year, I went on here and I said the resolution is going to be to put out 2 videos a week every week, and I have not missed a week at all, and I'm going to continue doing this for y'all, because this I'm not going to give up on my streak, and this is just to help you guys. If you're, obviously New Year, most people have well on stopped their New Year's resolution by now, but I'm showing you guys that you're in the way, and we're going to motivate. While we're doing ours, you stick with us, you do yours. We'll all be in it together. So with that being said, this is The Weigh-In by Benoit Chestnut and normally Sebastian Romero, but we will return to our regularly scheduled program soon. And, this is The Weigh-In. Out.
The Weigh-In, where stories ignite.